So I'm going to begin my engine disassembly project. So this is how it looked directly coming out of the car. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the transmission from the engine here. First thing I'm going to do is remove these and put them in here. First time I've ever seen this. Started pulling this one out and it came apart in there, so probably bad. All right, that one did the same thing. So I'm gonna disconnect that guy from here, this guy from here. These guys are both hooked in over here. And over there, and they come up to the wiring harness. He comes from the wiring harness, connects here, so I'll disconnect him. And I noticed, so remember this is the vents tube that I took off of the piece coming out of here for our brake booster. And this is not connected, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be connected to this vacuum line here. It runs up into here and has that little Y connector in there. Should be easy to reach in and unclip our fuel injectors right now. Right, disconnect the electrical from them. I'm gonna come back over to bank one, do the same things, remove all these, disconnect all that stuff. This is from my Ultimate AOS, where it tied into this, which is what was connected to the bottom of the coolant reservoir. So that is our coolant sensor, coolant level sensor. So we'll disconnect that. And just like the other bank, we have a connector here to take off. And on the other side, this connector here is going to our sensor that goes into the transmission there. And this wire is running right here into our main wiring harness. Main part of the wiring harness hangs over right here. I think this hose was supposed to be clipped on right here and it came pulled off when I was lowering the car. This is the hose that comes down and connects to the oil cooler down there. Fuel rail is right on top here. And this is the tubing for it. It was snapped into here. So we can pop that out. And it just splits off, runs down here. That's the one we disconnected from the firewall and goes right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect that and pull it out with the fuel injectors. And right before I pull it off, I'm gonna disconnect this wiring. This is the splitter for the Ultimate AOS. This is normally plugged in right here. The AOS splits it, so that's where it gets its power from. So when putting the fuel rail back on, this wire is gonna come through there. Fuel rail is just held on by these two bolts I removed, and then the two bolts in the middle. This tube here kind of blocks getting to those bolts, so I'm just going to squeeze it and detach it from here. On bank one, we got two things to disconnect. This one comes up through the fuel rail here, and this one comes up through the fuel rail here, going to the wiring harness. All right, this cord goes over the top of this and under here. I'm just gonna pull it out of the way. Connects to the wiring harness here that comes behind the AOS. I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect our AOS now. All right, I'll take that tube off. And it is tied down here with an E10 with this little strap. So I will disconnect that. And then there's this plastic clip that is holding this tube here that goes to the bottom of the plenum. And it also attaches to that line that goes to the oil cooler. So all three of these are just intertwined with this thing. All right, it is detached. It's still kind of held in place because the ultimate AOS is here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. All right, now is a good time to take off this line right here. It is attached to this little bracket. It's just a 10 millimeter that goes into the plastic of our intake here. And you can see it runs through here. And out the other side comes over this part and just has the hose that lays on here. That's the one that connects to the plenum. Sorry, that was an 8 millimeter. It is right there now. Just gonna slide over here. I guess we can just push it through in this direction. Oh, all right, so there is one more connector on here, so we gotta disconnect this electrical connector. This will come right out and set this aside. And this electrical connector comes from right here on the wiring harness. So it's just gonna double back and go into there. And that's what it looks like. Now right under here, our vacuum line that does the Y is connected here. So let me just pull that out. It looks like the top one is supposed to have a vacuum line. So I'll have to do some investigation and see if something is supposed to be plugged into there, but now I think everything is disconnected from this side, so we can go ahead and remove it. It just has the E10s around the base. It just has the E10 on the edges now. The ones in the middle were holding the fuel rail on, and also this piece. Just gonna go ahead and put a cap on that so nothing falls in there. I'm a little bit lucky with the flat 6 engine that I bought. It had these block off plates here that I could put on here just to keep junk from falling in the intake manifold holes. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the 2 bolts and the hose clamp for the AOS and get that out of the way and cap that hole up. All right, gonna remove bank 1 intake manifold now, just the same 2 bolts on the outside. And this one has 2 vacuum lines to it. The one from this Y attaches to the bottom point, and the one on the top is the one that's just coming here and not attached to anything. I think it attaches to the bottom of the piece that goes between the 2 manifolds, so I think. I'll just leave them attached there for now since they're disconnected at the other ends. Next is this oil cooler or heat exchanger. There are 2 bolts on each side, just remove them. And then there are 4 O-rings under here that will need to be replaced. All right, I am going to release this cable from here, attached right there, and we should be able to disconnect this. Now we're going to disconnect this from the back of the starter. It's a 13 millimeter. This one comes off. And this main guy that leads up to our B plus terminal here comes off. I'm just going to save the nut on the end. Now that these wires are free, I'm going to start figuring out how to unclip this. Just pulls up here out of that plastic snap that is attached here. I think it is time to remove these two bolts just to get this plastic bracket out of the way, and then remove the alternator. Oh yeah, don't forget there is a third bolt right in here. These are both E-Torx size E14. On the back of it is this 13 millimeter that has the ground wire. That is the other one of the B plus. Oh yeah, and that electrical connector is on the back too. All right, 10 millimeter nut. I'm gonna remove this cable that comes to the wiring harness from right here. Okay, so a couple more electrical connectors. The one down here, pull that off. That goes to the wiring harness right here. Then we have the one over here. Comes to the wiring harness right here, disconnect that. Finally, we've got this one that is running under our tube here. Just gonna reach in and disconnect that. All right, first I'm just going to move this out of the way. One end is here, the other end goes underneath that. Pull that out. Now we can disconnect our oil fill tube with these two bolts here. Remove that, cover up, plug that hole. If we're installing the Ultimate AOS one, we're gonna make sure this goes under that hard line there. Now we can get to this last connector coming off the wiring harness. Goes right here, 4-prong guy. And I'm just gonna follow this around, make sure everything is disconnected. Gonna unhook. Unhook that guy out of there. And then I'm going to start taking these rails off. So there's a bolt there, a bolt there. And then this rail should come off. That clip looks like it broke somehow. Let's see. How is this on here? That was attached. Oh yeah, one more connection here. It just pulls up. It's like a little terminal connector right there. All right, each side had two larger ones and two smaller ones. This side, the small one, this one gets held on from underneath. So I can just start pulling all of this stuff free now. All right, this side over here, I still need to unclip the wires from there and remove this. Oh yeah, that's right. This is the new style. So I gotta pull that down with the screwdriver and then disconnect that. All right, got that disconnected, and we do have a little ground screw here. It comes up, we need to detach. These wires are tucked underneath the hard lines, so I'm just gonna pull them out. All right, I just started lifting everything off. I forgot another couple ground wires right there. All right, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We have Really dirty, but pretty unobstructed engine now. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'm gonna go ahead and start removing this pump over here. And if I recall from my last one, if you push both of these up at the same time, the grommets will come up out of the bracket that's holding it in, and it just rotates from there. Okay, pivot. All right, that one's disconnected and loose. Now I'm just gonna remove the bracket and I can leave that one on it. All right, my newest tool in the shop. I finally got an M18 tool, impact wrench. Gonna knock off these 3 E-Torques and pry the pulley off. Then we got 3 more behind it to remove. All I can say is, holy cow, how have I lived so long without using one of those? All right, this little bolt was on this bracket right here, and now it is free. Okay, it's free other than this pipe here goes to the inside of the bracket. So before loosening that, I guess I need to disconnect this. All right, this is a 16 millimeter, and that's what the end looks like. And now it's free, we can get it out. 4 more bolts around this bracket, and I'm gonna remove that. Don't forget, when you pull this off, there are 2 of these on the left-hand side if you look at them. So I'm gonna remove this one because it stayed in there, and keep it together with this so it doesn't get lost. All right, I think we're ready for the secondary air system. So this is the pump, and this goes over here to the other bank. So we've got some Torques there to remove. So there's a couple Torques holding the plate on the bottom. Hopefully I'm going to delete this and not install it again when it goes back on. So I'm just gonna try to remove, I can't tell if there is, I'm pretty sure that there's a third bolt that's over here, probably accessible above here. So I'm gonna try to remove those without taking the pump out first. All right, I could get that one out and that one out without removing the pump, but I cannot get the third one that's back there. It's kind of cool. This is kind of on, it's got some rubber shocks, so that's got some give. But anyway, I'm gonna have to remove the big Torques guys holding this pump on. Okay, for me the trick was to use one of these tools to get down to it. It was so full of junk, the head of it was so full of junk. I sprayed some PB Blaster on the head down there, and then I used a pick to scrape some of the stuff out because I could not get this tool seated in it enough where it wasn't stripping. So, all right, got that one out. Okay, after that one was removed, this whole bracket can move. So, no need to undo the actual pump here. Just gonna disconnect this side. All right, it lifted right off, and there's a little metal gasket that goes over those 3 pieces. Should cover these up. I'm running out of caps, don't have any more, need to get some more. Next is gonna be the same for this. I'm just gonna disconnect this. This is the big long tube that goes down all the way into your sump, and another one on that side. So that's just holding on this electrical connector. I'm gonna unscrew this guy. This is a long tube that goes all the way down into the bottom of your sump. 19 millimeter. And let's not forget this little crush washer. Is stuck on there. Got him. Now I'm just gonna pull the starter out, bolt down there, bolt up here. All right, the top is beautiful, all done. I'm gonna go ahead and take off our engine mount now. These are 15 millimeters. This one, you can't get the bolt out because of this, but you just have to loosen it because there's a slot there. While this is out, I'm gonna replace the engine mount anyway, refresh it. So I'm gonna take these bolts out first. The head is over here, nut on that side. This engine mount is different. It's got a little Torx bit under here. It's a T30 that you have to remove before you can get this off. All right, I'm gonna detach this bracket and detach that sensor from in there. It's got a Torx bit holding it on. All right, I'm just gonna start on this side and start undressing the blocks all the way around. I'm gonna take off these connectors and brackets like this, just working my way around. So I'll just label these like 1, 2, 3, and keep going. As the first 5, we're gonna have this ground be 6. Gonna remove the hose clamp and this hose. This is how it faces, and that'll be 7. Pulley was 8. This is gonna be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is gonna be 14 and 15. Got everything out, oops, except I forgot this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew that one. He'll be the last one, 16. That guy is a 24 millimeter. All right, and just to keep track of it, I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew this guy, make him 17.